Good morning, everybody. We appreciate you making time to join us to take a brief look at the power of Sage Intacct. And I'm going to share just a couple of slides here at the beginning, and then turn things over to Jeff Stout, our Sage practice manager, who is actually our demo resource this morning. This is our agenda. And what I wanted to do, as I said, I'm joined by Jeff Stout. My name is Jeff Jenkins. I'm an account executive here at Oasis Solutions. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Oasis Solutions, I'd like to let you know we have been in existence since 1991. We've actually been a Sage partner for all of those years. And we actually started in Louisville, and we were a local organization that over the years has grown to be a nationwide organization supporting customers across the country. And we like to say that Oasis Solutions actually lives at the intersection of your people and your processes and the technology that you use to manage your business. And because Sage Intacct is our focus here today, I want to just briefly identify a couple of marker points that are foundational to understand where Sage Intacct sits in the marketplace. First and foremost, I like to point out that among all of the financial management applications in the market, the only application that is identified by the AICPA as their preferred provider is Sage Intacct. And that is a designation that is very important. And I think when the people that make the rules for accountants actually endorse a financial management application, that's something you have to take notice of. And there are a lot of different analyst reports that you can see out there on the internet about different applications. And there are many of them that identify Sage Intacct as their number one application. But instead of focusing on industry analysts, I like to think about what do actual users think about the software. And there is a crowdsourced website called G2. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's sort of the Yelp for software applications. And actual users have rated Sage Intacct as number one in customer satisfaction for, I believe it's 9 out of the last 10 years. And this year, Sage has received the designation not only of being the number one application in customer satisfaction and usability, but they actually have achieved a perfect score this year, 100 out of 100. And it kind of warms my heart in these times when nobody seems to agree about anything, that there is one thing that everybody seems to agree about, and that is that Sage Intacct is the most usable and user-friendly application in the marketplace. Now, I don't want to take up any more of your time talking about different components of the application. I want to turn things over to Jeff Stout now, because he's actually going to show us some of the things that make Sage Intacct such a stellar application. Jeff, I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'll go ahead and turn things over to you.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that.
While Jeff is sharing his screen, a couple household items or housekeeping items. We are doing this with our attendees in listen only mode. And so if you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A function in the Zoom meeting. And if there are any problems with technical difficulties, please let us know in the chat function and we'll try to help you resolve those. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thanks, Jeff. And hey, thanks for joining today. I'm going to spend a little bit of time this morning talking with you guys and showing a little bit about Sage Intacct And I'll tell you what I'm going to focus on a little bit, and that's going to mainly be kind of an intro to Sage Intacct, let you get a look and feel of the way of the application, how you can maneuver through the data and the user interface. We'll take a look at some of the functionality that's included in Sage Intacct, some of the standard functionality of dimensional accounting and multi-entity management. And we'll also take a look at some of the standard workflow and approval processes. As has been mentioned, Sage Intacct is a born in the cloud solution. And so what does that mean to you as a user? You'll see here that I'm at a login screen on the web browser. I'm using Google Chrome to log in. Intacct, born in the cloud, has always been a cloud solution, never been on premise and never will be on premise. So from a user standpoint, lots of things that frees up from a resource perspective for you. We don't have to worry about workstation installs, don't have to worry about server installs, don't have to worry about remote connections or VPNs or things like that for our users to manage and all the maintenance that goes along with that. We also don't have to worry about upgrades and that sort of thing. Sage Intacct does 4 upgrades a year, and they just push that functionality right into the system. So the next day, when you log in, you have those features and that functionality available to you. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to Sage Intacct. And I will let you know, if you're looking at my browser screen here, I will have 2 different sessions of Sage Intacct running. I'll explain a little bit later when I go between those sessions. If I do, it's really to show some of the workflow and the approval processes. And I'll kind of highlight when I'm going to do that. So you'll be aware when I'm moving between sessions and between logins. Now, as I log in here, I want to just direct to a couple areas right off in the upper right-hand corner. I'm logging in as Jeff here, and you'll see that I have a role associated with myself as a user, and that role is the controller of the organization. And when I log in, I'm presented a dashboard, and that dashboard is associated with my controller role. And so this is one area of Intacct where you can get into a little bit of security, because different users can have different roles in the organization, which will control what they can have access to in the organization or in your ERP system. But it's also helps control what you present to them on what they can see on a dashboard. Okay. Now we'll dig into the dashboard components here in a little bit, but just to kind of highlight, again, it's going to be, and you'll hear me say this multiple times today, likely that these dashboards are role-based, but they're also configurable. So, from my perspective, I want to present on my dashboard the things that are important to me as a user and the things that I need to take action on or be able to see the majority of my day. Now, I also mentioned just a little bit when we started in here that Intacct was a multi-entity accounting system. And so you'll see this up here in the upper left hand. I have a top level, and if I click on that, you'll see I have 3 other entities defined, 100, 200, and 300 for USA 1, USA 2, and USA 3. And as you hear the word entity, in your mind, you might want to equate that with like a company. Okay, so if you have to track different companies in your ERP system, you could set those up as entities in Sage Intacct. And we're operating here in a multi-entity shared environment. So that means we're sharing chart of accounts. Maybe we're going to share customers. Maybe we're going to share vendors. Maybe inventory items if we have inventory in the system. And those could all be shared from the top level down. But the multi-entity environment, what it provides for me is it provides a nice roll-up. Okay, so at any one point, if I'm operating at the top level, I'm seeing the financial health across my entire organization. So I'm seeing all the transactions for all the entities rolled up together. Now, if I need to work in a particular entity, I can open that. So if I want to open up USA 1, you'll see another browser window opens up here. And this is now only transactions for this entity, USA 1. Now, from a security perspective, if you have users that should only have access to one entity, you can limit that access in their user setup. So if we have an accounting person that only does accounting for USA 1 in their user setup, they would only be able to access, we would set them up only to access USA 1, or maybe they needed access USA 1 and 2, they could be set up to access both of those. But again, The nice thing about the entity setup is it does roll up that financial information. So at any one time, I have that consolidated view uh, in the system. So I'll close that entity one, and we'll come back to our top level. And briefly, before I dig into some of the components on the dashboard, let's talk about some ways that we can navigate through the system. Intacct, just like most any ERP application, is going to have a module slash menu type navigation scheme. We have that here as well, and that's right here under my applications menu. I can click the down arrow, and here we have all of the different module functionality that we're subscribed to in Sage Intacct. So we'll see a lot of the standard core financial information here, but Sage Intacct also has functionality for purchasing, order entry, inventory, project accounting. You'll see down here, time and expense entry, lease accounting, fixed assets. You'll see here on the menu what you have subscribed to, but in addition to standard core financial functionality, there's a lot of additional functionality that you can subscribe to within Sage Intacct. And to maneuver through the menus, you'll see it's just as easy as going down to the module functionality and clicking. So if I'm in accounts payable, I have, where I could set up my vendors, enter my bills, things like that, so on and so forth. We also have favorites functionality in Intacct, so I can set up favorites here. If there's things that I want to get to quickly, I can utilize my favorites menu for that. Because we're also working in the browser, we can set up bookmarks. If you're familiar, probably setting up bookmarks in your browser for certain things. So if I need to get to certain functionality, I can save those as bookmarks and very easily use that bookmark functionality to maneuver through the application. There's also shortcuts or things like that I can set up. You'll see down here on my dashboard if I have different shortcuts. So really multiple ways that I can navigate throughout the application. Okay. So let's jump in right now to the dashboard a little bit. So I talked as I logged in. I'm presented with the dashboard here, the controller dashboard. And just to highlight, if I because I have some other ones set up, I can maneuver between dashboards and different things as I talk about. They can be custom for your role. If we switch over here to the CFO dashboard, you're gonna see I have something completely different come up because that person that is operating the CFO role needs to see something different on their dashboard than I, as the controller, need to see on mine. So just to highlight that I can have different, that I am able to have different things presented on the dashboard. Now, a couple things that I want to make sure that we understand about the dashboard, in addition to it being role-based and configurable, is this is also dynamic data. Okay, so the information that I'm seeing here is live in the system as transactions are being posted and updates being made in the application. When my browser window here is refreshed, I'm seeing up to date, up to the minute information. So at any time, I kind of have, that view, that finger on the pulse, if you will, of the information, that's relevant to me in our organization. You'll also see here that in addition to being dynamic, I have conditional formatting that I can apply to my dashboard. So I have, some colors, reds and greens and arrows and frowny faces, smiley faces, different things like that I can put or associate with the areas of my dashboard. And really that's there so that I can, when I look at things on my dashboard, I can get my eye drawn to that piece of information and make a quick decision on whether I need to look at that a little bit deeper or if I can move on. And that conditional formatting, as I scroll down here, you'll see it's on reports and different things like that I have on the dashboard as well. Now, in addition to that, I can also drill down and into the data that I see here. So, if I take a look at this item over here, these top 8 boxes here are called performance cards in Intacct. And this is my performance card for G&A expenses. So this is basically an accumulation of all of the accounts, okay, that make up my G&A expense account group. So, I take a look at this number. I see it's got a red frowny face. It's 173% of budget. So I want to dig in and see what's going on in my G&A expenses. And so when I click into that, that's going to bring up the accounts and balances for the period that I have defined in my G&A expenses. And if I want to drill down a little further into some of these accounts, maybe I want to take a look at my meals and entertainment here, this $15,000 amount there in meals and entertainment. That's going to pull up all of the individual transactions or entries that make for the period that I'm in that make up that $15,850. Okay. Now, if I can drill down a little bit deeper, again, all these items are hyperlinked here. So I'm drill into this third transaction for $2,750 and take a look at that journal entry and see that that journal entry came from some bills that were entered in the system. Okay. And so I can drill even a little bit deeper into those bills and see this actually came from one bill. It was a bill for American Express. So let's take a look at that and see what that bill was for. So we had a bill that was entered for American Express. I can go all the way back to the transaction level details, see when it was entered. This bill was paid, when it was paid, what check paid that. If I scroll down here, I see the distribution entries for that, but I also see the attachment that was associated. So if I want to go in a little bit deeper, I can even open that attachment and see a source level transaction on this AP bill that was entered in the system. Okay. Now there's some other information I can see here. If I look at the top, I have some posting details, but also have history. So if I look at that history, I can see who created this bill, who modified this bill. And what's also nice is I can see a history of the approval process right down here in at the bottom and see that this was entered and Emma actually approved this bill. So if I'm doing some level of reconciliation or trying to understand what happened, why is this bill so big, what's going on here, very quickly and easy, I'm able to, with a few clicks of the mouse, drill back down to transaction level detail. Not only that, but source document level detail if those attachments are associated with those transactions, and all the way back to an approval level as well. Now, one thing I want to mention about attachments here, there's multiple ways attachments can get associated with a transaction in Intacct, and from a payable side, there's multiple ways as well. So if I'm manually entering AP bills in the system and I have an email with a PDF attachment or something like that, I could obviously attach that to the transaction, just a drag and drop. But if I'm using Sage's AP automation tool, okay, where bills are automatically being uploaded or emailed into the system, and Sage, through its AI technology, reading those bills and setting those bills up in the system, okay, when I do that, those transactions, those attachments are automatically associated with those bills. So multiple ways that we can get that information in the system, whether we're doing manual type entries or we're using some of the automation tools that Sage Intacct provides. Okay, so let's go back out here, but again, kind of showing the power of the drill down capability and the navigation capability in Intacct. So if I'm doing reconciliation of accounts or trying to dig in and get an understanding of information, it's very, very easy to do that in Intacct. Now, I want to highlight just a few other components here on the dashboard as we go through. I talked about our performance cards up top. Down here in the middle, we have a report. This is actually a P&L report that we have set up in the system. Typically, or a report that you might print out on paper or to PDF and send via email. Whenever you create reports or customize like a financial report in the system, one of the last questions it always asks you is, do you want to present this on a dashboard? And so I answered yes. And so we present this on a dashboard. So at any time that I'm looking at this report, again, I've got up-to-date information of what the financial health of my organization looks like. And we have the same functionality on reports as we did on performance cards. If I want to drill into this operating and maintenance, the $74,000 amount here, and take a look at maybe my software and license fees for $12,500, I can drill back in just like I showed a minute ago in the performance card. Same functionality that I'm going to see throughout on the dashboard here to get back to transaction level, and even again attachment level source document detail if I need to. Okay. Now, just to highlight a few other things I kind of briefly scrolled through these earlier, but we have a lot of approval. I do have approvals turned on in our system here, so we have our approval parts on the dashboard. So if I have bills to approve or maybe purchase orders to approve, or payments to approve, or journal entries to approve, or if I'm approving expense reports. A lot of different areas I can set up that approval workflow in Sage Intacct. But you also notice, and here I've got some charts and graphs, and when I switched over to that CFO dashboard, you probably noticed that as well. Lots of different types of components we could put on our dashboard to make the data easily viewable to us as a user. Now, Sage Intacct, also highlight here on the dashboard, Sage Intacct is a multi-dimensional accounting system. And if your current ERP system, if you think of your chart of accounts in your current ERP system, if you have a segmented chart of accounts, relate those segments to dimensions. So you might have a main account and a dash 000 and then a dash 00 that might stand for locations or departments or line of business or class or revenue, something like that. Those dimension or those segments stand for something that you need to do reporting on. In Sage Intacct, we, instead of utilizing a segmented account, we'll utilize dimensions. And you'll see here on my top, I have some dimension filters here. But we can set dimensions up for things like location, department, project, vendor, customer, inventory, class, line of business. I mean, there's lots of different dimensions that we have available to us in Sage Intacct. We also have user-defined dimensions as well. So if you need more than what comes with a standard system, you can set up user-defined dimensions. And what dimensions do for us is when I do transactions, I can associate that transaction with a dimension. And then if I need to do any certain reporting against those dimensions, those transactions that are associated, and I can filter on those dimensions for that reporting. So I'll demonstrate that here just by saying, hey, let's take a look on my top level here. I want to filter and show only transactions for location 100. And I'll apply that. And when I do that for location 100, you'll see these numbers update. Okay, because it's filtering out every other transaction except what is associated with location 100. Maybe I want to filter down to my marketing department. Okay, so I'll go into my department and filter down to marketing. And then that's going to then filter out every other department that I have set up in the system. Now, this is not, I went into a location department. This is not hierarchical. Okay, so if I want to remove my location dimension here and still keep my marketing applied and apply that, now I'm looking at a marketing department across all of the organization. Doesn't matter which location it came from. Okay, so dimensional functionality is really powerful in how you decide you need to do reporting, okay, in the application and report on your data. And some other nice things, a few other things on dimensions I'll mention is if you do specific reporting, maybe from a P&L standpoint, I can require dimensions on certain accounts so that users will not be able to make an entry unless they choose a dimension value. I can also set up different dimension combinations so that maybe one particular department is only associated with one location, right? Users can't make mistakes and then choose that department for the wrong location. So I can set up different combinations and apply those as well. So dimensions are a very, very powerful piece of Sage Intacct. All right. I think the last thing that I want to show for us today is I do want to talk a little bit about some of the workflow and approval processes. And I'm going to do that just in a standard AP bill, and I'll explain the scenario. I'm logged in here as Jeff. Unfortunately, Jeff doesn't have any security in Sage Intacct to post an AP bill. Okay, his boss Emma is the sole approver, and so any bill that Jeff enters in the system, excuse me, has to be approved by Emma. So we'll demonstrate that. I'm going to go to my favorites here, and I'm going to go to bills, and I'm simply going to say I'm going to add a bill. Okay, now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the AP entry screen, but you'll see the fields that I'm putting in. I'm going to choose my vendor, very quick and easy, find as you type lookup. I'll choose vendor Lenovo, and I'm going to put a bill number in here and come down. You'll see here again the attachment section that I demonstrated earlier. If I need to put an attachment to this, I can add that here. I have a default distribution account associated with this vendor, so I'm going to go ahead and put in my AP bill, the amount, And I'm going to associate this with location 100 and with my G&A department. Again, so this is that dimensional functionality that I'm able to apply down on this transaction so that this expense is recorded to the right location and the right department. Now, as I do this, you'll notice up here at the top, I've got a button that says submit and submit in new. I don't have a post button because I can't post transactions. And as I submit that transaction in the system and come back to my bill list, you'll see that Lenovo transaction is now in a submitted status. Now, I'm going to jump over here to my other session of Sage Intacct where I'm logged in as Emma, okay? And I'm going to refresh this here. And Emma has a bill approval part up here on her dashboard, and I'll open that up. And we now have that $9,250 bill that I just entered in the system that's now in Emma's space for her to go in and take a look at and approve. Now, depending on my setup in the system, Emma could also get an email that says, hey, Emma, you got a bill to approve. So if she's out for the day or she's off site doing a meeting, she could click on her phone, click that, open it up and approve that bill if she wanted to. I'll just demonstrate for you all here what we have within the application. So Emma can, from this spot, she can approve or decline that, or she can open that bill and view it and take a look at the information on that bill. And one thing to highlight here, I'm not going to demonstrate this for time constraints, but Intacct has a tool called Intacct Collaborate that's on this bill down here. So if Emma has questions for Jeff, she could write a little note back to Jeff, say, hey, what was this for? And then Jeff could respond what the bill was for, right? And then, you know, if there's some collaboration or some dialogue that goes back and forth, the cool thing with that is it's saved with the transaction. So if later down the line I'm doing that drill down navigation to the source level transaction, as I demonstrated earlier, whatever user does that will see that dialogue or that text back and forth. It stays with the transaction. Okay. But as Emma takes a look at this bill, looks okay, she can go ahead and approve that bill and enter any comments maybe that she wants to right there and click on the approval option. And now if we close that down and we go back to where I'm logged in as Jeff, and if I just refresh that screen, we'll see that bill has now been posted in the system. Okay. Now, again, to talk about approvals, I have a very simple approval process set up. No levels of value, anything like that, but a full, Jeff can't enter, Emma does. We can set approvals up with different value levels. Maybe I want to set it up that Jeff can enter bills up to $5,000 and Emma has to approve everything over that. I could do that. I could also set it up where the approval is only on payments, okay, that we can post whatever AP bill in the system, but when it's ready to be paid, someone has to approve. You could back it up to purchase orders. I mean, there's lots of different levels that we can set up in an approval process. But again, that functionality standard within Sage Intacct. Okay, so let's end up here on the dashboard and just recap a little bit what we saw. Started with a dashboard, talked a little bit about navigation and overview and the dynamic data and ways that we could drill down to see information, get to information very, very quickly, and how we could filter on information with dimensions as well, and then some of the standard workflow and approval processes. I appreciate your time. I'm going to kick it back to Jeff to kind of wrap us up.
What I would like to say is we would be happy to answer any questions that anybody has regarding Sage Intacct. Jeff, we did get one question come in the Q&A during your presentation. I wanted to give you the opportunity to answer it, and that was, how long does it typically take to implement a system like Sage Intacct?
Yeah, it's depends a lot on functionality that's subscribed to. I mean, I'll say that. But folks could typically look anywhere from maybe 90 to 120 days is a good average of what it would take to implement. If there's limited functionality just from a core financials, it could be a little bit less. You know, if they're buying all the full package with inventory and distribution and assets and something else, maybe a little bit longer on that. But that's good good time period to budget for.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. I finally got to the slide that I wanted to share with everybody. Here is my contact information. Please feel free to scan the code there on the screen, or you can send me an email. My email address is on the screen as well. We'd be happy to have a personalized consultation with you. No obligation, of course, but because everybody recognizes at this point that each organization is different, we'd like to have a conversation and see if Sage Intacct might be a good fit for your organization moving forward. Appreciate your time, and we don't want to go any longer. Please have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks.